Hello, everyone, and welcome. Trinity Wave here. Today, I'm very excited because I have a talk on emotions and healthy communication. And sorry, let me go back. So, today, I'm excited to talk about releasing fears and triggers and some progress I've seen along my journey and talk about well being. And so, this is just something that I think will help others and also it helps myself. So, before I get into it today, I just want to make some reminders that anything I say, just take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't. And feel free to tweak things to your liking. And of course, I plan to offer a little visualization at the beginning and end of this talk today, and I'll be giving some cues for that. So please listen to your body and your own needs for breathing. These are just suggestions. So I invite us to start by just inhaling and exhaling normally here through the nose if you can. And then try to lengthen and smooth out the inhales and the exhales. And then if you can, begin to inhale to 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4. I'm doing that again. Thank you. So here I invite one to join in the visualization if you can. So if you're not already, you can close the eyes and begin to imagine yourself having a good day. Imagine yourself feeling free in the body. Imagine that your mind feels clear, open, and free. Your spirit is filled with peace, contentment, and joy. Breathing into this visualization, and just begin to notice how you feel. What would it be like for you to have this feeling in your everyday life throughout your day? How would it feel to have other people in your life who want to share this kind of energy with you? And coming back to the body now, focusing on the breath. And now maybe you want to wrap all that delicious good feeling in a little ball or a little seed. And then imagine bringing the ball into your heart space and knowing that you can come back to this love, this connection at any point. And blinking the eyes open, coming back into the space. How was that for you? Hope it was good. And so I just want to tell you a little bit about my story before I go into some healing modalities for these. So, growing up, I had childhood trauma, I had social anxiety, and as an adult, I had PTSD. So, between the ages of 8 and 12, for me, I grew larger. And by the time I was 12, I was diagnosed by a doctor to be morbidly obese. And for my 12-year-old self, it was very scary to think that I might die from being overweight as I hadn't even hit puberty yet. So, within the span of 1 to 2 years, I lost nearly 60 pounds and began to feel more comfortable in my body and in social situations. However, from the childhood bullying at times throughout my life, I had developed a severe social anxiety and a fear of eating in public. And these two phobias would come back at different points in my past, and this created both stress in social situations and disordered eating. And when I was young, this dynamic created the thought that I shouldn't eat in public to be accepted by my peers. And this was scary and harmful to my adolescent psyche. Luckily, after I had lost weight, I began to feel more comfortable in social situations and was able to eat in the school cafeteria. So that was a little bit about my story, and I plan to explain more about my journey and through and with some of the fears and triggers throughout this talk. And I'll be going over some psychological terms in this talk as well. So I believe a trigger could be described as a psychological term to explain a behavior that elicits an intense and unexpected emotional response or causes an individual to relive memories or experiences or events that spark intense emotional reaction. So, over the years of dealing with serious PTSD and anxiety and emotional triggers, I have learned a few holistic tools that I would like to share with those who may be interested. So I'm going to just tell you a few of my triggers that have happened in the past. Dogs, dogs barking, men, loud noises. And now I'm going to tell you a story about one of my trigger experiences. So I was once at an event and I was planning on doing a workshop at an event, and there was a man there who was setting off fireworks. It was New Year's Eve, and there was a man who was setting off fireworks, and it was incredibly loud, and ashes and embers were flying all over my artwork. And I was asking him, like, "Can you please stop?" And he was completely resistant and refused to stop and said that he would just do it all night. And I had planned to stay there, and I had talked to other people about staying there, and this was actually the owner that was doing this, but I didn't see any notice of this happening, and the loud noises were triggering me. And I didn't have anywhere else that I had planned to go that night, so I ended up looking for a motel room, and it was New Year's Eve, so none of them were vacant at that in that moment, late at night. So I started driving, but I wasn't, and the reason why I'm telling this story is that the loud sound was triggering me, and I felt like the safest thing to do was to leave. And I recently thought about this incident again recently because it was the 2.5 years since it happened. So this is just to show that for me, this experience had created a neural pathway that felt triggered by fireworks. And this leads me to talking about neural pathways. And I believe that these are like pathways in the brain that give signals to on a variety of things. And I think that certain experiences could create neural pathways that could elicit a trigger response. However, it is possible to rewrite these, and I want to discuss about that next. So the best analogy I've heard for describing this is with computer language to because I think it's possible to rewrite neural pathways. Um, like a computer programmer could write or change code. So think about computer language. It's like conditional two sides of a neural pathway. These are just examples. So if pleasure, then feels good equals happiness. And on the opposite spectrum, if pain, then danger equals dying. I'm not saying that these are true. This is just an example. So I believe that it's possible to rewrite neural pathways that show, for example, if that old trigger, like fireworks, then neutral equals safe, fine. Or, for instance, if a man is talking next to me at a reasonable volume, it's neutral, it's fine. So it's on the 4th of July and it was like a booming sound, and I even watched them from a distance and it was fine. I even talked to a little girl and I liked watching them. So maybe one already knows what triggers they have, and if not, then begin to pay attention what certain behaviors, words, or activities, if if there's a response with a certain emotion. So now I want to talk about phobias. And phobia is just a fancy word for fear. I used to fear people watching me eat, and this one came from childhood, like I was discussing. I even used to have a fear of going into the grocery store and being in the grocery store because people would know that I was eating, or if I was, like, buying ice cream, they knew that I would be eating the ice cream. And this comes from, like, a fear of people people judging, a fear of judgment. Um, for me, some of my other fears were fear of betrayal and fear of rejection. And the fear of rejection was a big one for me because of the childhood bullying that I had growing up, and I used to feel really rejected and had, like, a deep wound about not being accepted, and it's it was very sad for me because I had this deep need to connect with others and have a sense of safety and belonging in the world, and I think it's wonderful for people to share and to be connected for the love of it and to share in the human experience. And it's one of my deepest desires to share love on this planet, and I'm grateful that I do. Well, luckily, now I feel more secure and I don't feel rejection in the same way that I used to. So I think that it's important to find ways to deal with fear in some healthy ways rather than just avoiding it at all costs. And I'll talk a little bit about why next. So now I want to just kind of talk about what this has to do with the body because how we I believe that how I believe we can use the body potentially to help us process and release fears and triggers. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the nervous system, breathing, and the circulatory system. And I recently watched some videos that mentioned this connection between the breathing and the circulatory system. So what I heard them saying was when a human breathes in oxygen, it goes into the lungs, and the lungs have bronchi and alveoli, which are like little air balloons. And the oxygen gets into the capillaries, which goes into the heart. And then the heart pumps that oxygenated blood throughout the body. And that kind of describes the connection between the breathing and the circulatory system. However, the nervous system can also connect to the breathing and the circulation. So now I want to talk about the two aspects of the nervous system. Just two aspects of the nervous system, and that's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous systems. So, about this yoga, and I've heard the parasympathetic nervous system referred to as the rest and digest mode. So, in a relaxed state, breathing is naturally longer and slower. And in a healthy body, taking long, slow breaths into the lungs are probably going to fill the lungs with plenty of oxygen to allow blood to travel to the heart and flow easily out. So, once again, I invite us to take a few longer, deeper inhales and exhales through the nose. Inhaling and exhaling, slowing it down and smoothing it out. And just bring a hand to the heart and see if you can notice the heartbeat here. Great, thank you. So, now I'm going to switch gears and discuss the sympathetic nervous system, which I've heard too called the fight, flight, or freeze response. And in this mode, there could be some tension or tightening of the muscles in the body. And in this state, the breathing could be quicker and more shallow. So I'm going to use some silly examples here for the sympathetic nervous system. I used to have a friend that used to really love to one of these or to watch a movie with her. So at a haunted house, there would be like scary costumed people jumping out to scare us. And sometimes I probably screamed back and my heart raced and my breathing would get like fast and shallow, or maybe I ran away. And these could all be examples of some of the fight, flight, or freeze response. Or say I was watching a scary movie and the main character in the movie is like moving slowly down a dark hallway and there's a strange sound and the camera's directly behind her and then the music starts to ramp up and I'm going to make an educated guess on what's happening in the body. Maybe I was like feeling afraid. Either the thought is coming into my head that the character's in danger or my body's reacting to the frequency. Either way, the breathing might get quicker, and if that happens, then the heart starts to beat faster to get more oxygen. And if that continues, then the pattern could continue. And if it continues long enough, it puts stress on the nervous system and the circulatory system. And if you have heart issues or respiratory issues already, please don't try this. But if you are just curious about this and want to experiment with it, I invite you to see how it feels in the body, just taking some quick, short inhales and exhales. And then coming to rest, bringing a hand to the heart and just noticing how the heart feels. So it might feel different. Maybe it's beating faster than it did when the slower breaths. So, a little bit of stress on these systems is okay, especially regular exercise and stepping out of one's comfort zone gently. But doing too, but too much stress on these systems could lead to cardiac issues, which is why I want to discuss some healing techniques for releasing fears and triggers to help reduce stress on the body, mind, and spirit. So, when in the sympathetic nervous response, the fight, flight, or freeze response, it is possible to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, so the rest and digest mode, through simple breathing focus and or redirecting thoughts. And I want to give some examples here. Okay, so example one is a simple breathing exercise. It's a 4x4 breathing, like we did in the beginning. So inhaling 2, 3, 4, exhale 2, 3, 4. And example two is using a mantra to flow with the breath. So recently, I've been releasing anxiety and fear through doing an exercise with the breathing. And it's just exhale the fear, inhale the love. And I found it really helpful. And it's incredibly simple, but it's not always easy. So I invite you to try this practice out with me a few times. And then inhale 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4. Again. And then listen to my cues. Exhale the fear. Inhale the love. Exhale the fear. Inhale the love. Exhale the fear. Inhale the love. And you can repeat this to yourself silently a few times. And just returning focus to the breath here. Wonderful. Thank you. So I have two little other ideas here for practices. Another idea is using crystals or a crystal visualization. And the first one is a black rock practice. So imagine holding like a dark rock like obsidian or labradorite. And if there's some fear coming up, or if someone has shared energy with you and you feel like it's a negative energy that you don't want to have with you, you can either use an actual crystal or stone in the right hand, or you can imagine holding a dark rock in the right hand and just allowing that negative energy to flow down the body through the arm into that dark rock to be absorbed and transmuted. So the body's no longer holding on to it. And another one is radical self love. And I love myself, and I don't need to put my self worth into someone else loving me or accepting me because I can do this for myself. And which releases me from the fear of rejection, the fear of judgment by others. And if you're looking for a compassion practice, I do have that in my emotional awareness and flow live stream. And I put some links in the description below. So you can check those out at the end of class if you like, or this discussion. So, next, I want to talk about somatic healing. And this is kind of like healing that's happening through the body. And currently, I have a variety of healing modalities in my own medicine bag that I've been working with over the years, and such as belly dance, ecstatic dance, meditation, yoga, singing, visualization, music creation, and Thai massage. And I'm grateful for this path of healing that I've been on over the last few years, and I'm grateful to spread this healing with the world in many different ways. So I'm also grateful for the dance community. I started ecstatic dance around 2014, I think, so almost a decade ago now, and it's really opened me to the healing of dance. And I've years for years before I was dancing in clubs, but ecstatic dance was a sober friendly place for me where I could dance and just move however I needed to. And I believe I believe what this does is create a way to help the body release pent up emotions and traumas and literally move through them. And I also believe that it starts paving new neural pathways that signal it is safe to let go of these old emotions and opening the body and the vessel and the soul to new possibilities. And the year I started my Artist's Way sober journey, my ecstatic dance practice really took off, and I was doing aerial dancing with partners, and it's just really amazing. And I think ecstatic dance can also be a solo journey too, if that's what the dancer is wanting or needing. And there's also a few other ways to get the same benefits through a variety of other somatic healing types. Um, like I was mentioning, yoga, belly dance, also ritual, massage, or sensual self touch, or whatever you feel comfortable with. So, speaking of ritual, a while ago I was thinking of the concept of ritual or ceremony, and I learned that in Spanish, the word ritmo actually means rhythm. And the way that it's spelled looks closer to the word ritual, starts with that RIT. And as a dance teacher, this makes sense to me because teaching someone steps in dance is generally just kind of ritualistic. And this was written by a Laguna woman. It's a fictional book. However, parts of it seem kind of realistic to me. In the book, the main character are like native drums. And this to me is a poignant connection because it brings up the change from traditional ideas of ritual and medicine to alcohol drinking, which makes me sad because one, I believe there is medicine in dance and singing and the use of natural elements or plants. And 2, because I think that it seems like in some ways colonialized people forced the natives to stop doing some traditional practices and spirituality and the using of native languages. And 3, I have heard how alcohol has been destructive to both native and non-native communities, and I can see how alcohol has a negative cyclical loop if it's abused or overused, which is why I don't use it recreationally anymore. So I'm going to go back to Native American ritual types. And one ritual that the main character, Teo, in this book does is a medicine wheel circle. And this idea of the medicine wheel, from what I've heard, has been used in many different Native American tribes, although it has varied in certain ways throughout the tribes. And I've heard that the medicine wheel generally being connected to the elements: earth, water, wind, fire, the four directions, the balance of the elements, and I think the above and below space too, but that's me. I'm gonna give some connections here between the medicine wheel and the fundamental connection between the elements, the chakras, and the medicine wheel. So this is how I'm connecting to it. So this is what I want to share. So the chakras and the elements, and I'll start from the bottom. So the root chakra connects with the earth. And as a woman, I feel connected to Gaia, our mother earth. And it's probably this connection that led me to studying environmental science in college. And I recently created a whole goddess course in paintings to reconnect women to their own magic. And I believe we are connected to the earth, so connecting women to earth magic as well. And some affirmation connected to the root chakra are: I am safe, I am rooted, I am secure, I am safe, I am rooted, I am secure. Or negative energy is going down the body, down the legs, down the feet, and into the earth. And then the earth transmutes it into more love and light in the world. And sometimes imagine like little flowers sprouting up, because I believe that the earth is so transformational and is just creating more beauty out of releasing negative energy. And I believe that the earth is sacred. And if one is doing conscious work with the earth, it's nice to ask for permission or consent to do this and just listen and see what arises using your intuition and listening when doing deeper connection with the earth. And this leads me to water. So sacral water, Svadhisthana chakra, the second chakra. And this connects to the water element, our own creative juices, the liquid and fluid that helps create new life through the physical body. And in women, it's connected to the womb, this like internal ocean, and obviously the reproductive organs. And in men, this is connected to sperm, the seeds. And that was the second chakra and the water element. And now I want to move on to the fire element. This is the power of transformation. And in some ways, I could see how the fire element connects to both the solar plexus and the heart. And I can see this because the solar plexus and the heart can both pump and can create heat in the body. And this is with that pumping action. So in the diaphragmatic breathing, the diaphragm pumping is called breath of fire in yoga. It's a breathing practice. And in the heart chakra, the heartbeat pumping is pumping blood throughout the body. And breath of fire, both breath of fire and the heart chakra, the heart can increase the heat in the body. Think about like running and how when a person is running, how the heartbeat is increasing and the breath is increasing and the body's warming up. So that was the fire element. And then going into the air element, can see this connected to the throat chakra. And in the throat, the air flows through and can create sound, including laughter, language, crying, singing, etc. Playlist, so the chakra activation playlist, and I have that in the description below if you want to check that out sometime. So I'm going to segment off of this by talking about emotions within the triggers, because to me, it's really the emotion that's the focal point within the trigger and not necessarily what the other person is saying or doing. I mean, sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's like a noise or something. Of course, please respect one's own boundaries, and it's good to state those if needed. And it's understandable why someone might focus on the noise as the problem and remembering just to bring it back to the awareness and owning one's own feelings and one's own story to help release triggers. So, next, I want to talk about fear, guilt, and shame. So, when I was young, there was a lot of fear, guilt, and shame being thrown around my household, and I did not know how to deal with it. I didn't even know how to process my emotions or express my emotions in healthy ways when I was young. Luckily, now I have learned a lot about transmutation in regards to emotions. And for me, this has helped break through those negative generational patterns of guilt, fear, and shame. And I believe if someone is aware of what fear, guilt, and shame feel like in their own body, and they also believe that they're not responsible for how other people feel, then it's possible to transmute those negative feelings into neutrality or something positive. Or maybe you have other techniques. Um, and also, if this is dealing with just another person, maybe using NVC or nonviolent communication to talk with them, discussing what's actually the issue. Learning one's own emotions, thoughts, and story. One has more power in releasing their own fears and triggers. And once a person can identify and transmute their own negative emotions, they're much more aware of it and less likely to transfer it on to others unknowingly. And I to more truth. And I'm not saying that just do have our best interest at heart. Is this real? And if it's just fear of the unknown, then it's just false evidence. And see what was real for in that scenario. Up. Or how could I steer my life in a more aligned direction next? And there are some affirmations that I'd like to share to help remind myself and others that I am free to say what I wish, free to act best interest without being dissuaded by others who are not living my life for me. And a side note, one starts to vibrate and is close enough to another, the other will start to vibrate too. So they're on the same level. And this is help enjoy. Breathing into this visualization. And just begin to notice how you feel. Focus on the breath. Maybe you want to wrap all those delicious good feelings into a little ball or little seed and bring that little seed ball in heart space. And you can always come back to this anytime you need, blinking the eyes open and coming back into the space. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for listening to this talk today. I do want to say for ladies out there who want to do some deeper transformational work,